Hey guys, this is Mike. Welcome back to Fright Flicks and Killer Theories for MTV Scream. This episode we're going to be doing Season 2, Episode 3, Vacancy. This episode is continuing the trend of naming them after famous horror movies. This one was named after the Kate Beckinsale and Luke Wilson horror movie, of course, Vacancy, from, I believe it was 2007. I just checked IMDb, and the next two episodes are going to be called Happy Birthday to Me, which is based on an 80s slasher, and I highly recommend checking that out. And then episode 5 is called Dawn of the Dead, which is based on I'm joking. We all know what Dawn of the Dead is. This episode was directed by Jamie Travis, which all of us Scream fans know is the director of the pilot episode and the season 1 finale, Revelations. This episode picks up right where the last one left off. It seems like this is going to be a thing this season. I don't personally mind that. I think that's pretty cool. So it starts with Audrey looking over Jake's dead body, and someone pointed out online in the comments section, always read the comments under these videos, there's always great stuff. Someone pointed out, why haven't I touched on the fact that the killer leaves these little notes pinned to everything? And I said it was because I don't believe that it's become relevant yet. The only relevance that I can see thus far is it kind of resembles Noah's murder board, homemade, stitched together way that they're presented. So all of you guys out there thinking that Noah's the killer, and let me get this out of the way right now, Noah is the big suspect right now with everybody online. So can't say that I necessarily disagree, but we'll go into all that a little bit later. But if you needed another reason to suspect Noah, yeah, look at those, and it's pretty arts and crafty. So, just wanted to point that out. Thank you, whoever that was. I'm sorry I can't remember the name right now, for pointing me to that thought. So anyway, as the episode goes, Audrey takes the notes off of Jake's dead body, runs off, scream, and then we go right into Emma drama again. Yes, I don't need to state it again. We all know this. Emma should be dead by now. Anyway, so we go right into not only Emma drama, but Emma and her mom drama, which, as all of us who watch this show know, that is where the best stuff lies. Second only to Brooke and her father's drama, which thankfully there was none of that in this episode. But anyway, so we get Emma and her mom drama. And guess what? Now they're throwing in yet even another character. We saw him last episode. We saw him a little bit last season. More stuff about the dad. The dad was a big part of this episode. And yeah, we'll get to that a bit later on. One of the things I just want to point out real quick about the dad, though, is that last season I was 100% convinced that he was nothing but a hallucination and that he had died. And I actually had this whole theory that that was the body that Brooke's father was taking out of the trunk, and it was all connected, and they were blah, blah, blah. So it turns out that isn't true. But if you go back and watch season 1 when she's in the hospital and keeps seeing her dad, all that stuff is very dreamlike. And I think when he points her towards, like, the, baby, I'm such an idiot, the baby part of the hospital, whatever, the nursery, he just disappears out of nowhere, and the camera goes up all high, and she looks around and sees that there was never really anybody there, and blah blah blah. So yeah, ghost of Emma's past. Evidently, no, he's a tangible entity, and yeah, he's back for at least this episode. God, all right, he basically needs to go away. A little bit, we get into more of the best stuff that this show has to offer, which is Noah and Audrey. So they end up going to the storage unit from the last episode. Beginning of this episode, so they go there and the lock is broken. He opens it up and there's just a whole bunch of crap in there. One thing that I specifically wanted to point out about this section was that Noah particularly has a dig against the Blair Witch Project. I believe he says something along the line of, "Oh, that sucks, all this hype and then what a letdown, blah blah blah." I'm like, motherfucker, you fucking writers, you guys make fun of the Blair Witch Project one more time, I'm turning this goddamn show off, I swear to God. That's one step away from basically being like, hey, you remember there was this slasher movie from 1996 where Drew Barrymore got killed at the beginning? What a lame show. I would punch my TV and I would But yeah, don't make fun of the Blair Witch Project. That is a infinitely better horror movie than, whatever. I'm sorry, that's just a slight thing. Anyway, so the two of them, they find that there's this GoPro security camera that's been recording everything. They take it, they go back to his apartment. Before that, though, we go into the school hallway, drama, and we get the small little bit of Kieran that we get in this episode. it really seems like they're almost trying to phase Kieran out of this series, and I could kind of see why. It's like, oh, we have to kill a certain number of the Lakewood Six, blah, blah, blah. And I really hope that they're not going that way, because Kieran is one of the characters who wasn't really developed last season, and I could totally see them being like, hey, well, this character really didn't become anything last season, so let's just kill him off, just like Jake. As opposed to the idea of taking the characters like Emma that we more than developed last season and killing them off, and instead discovering more about the people we didn't get to know last season. But anyway, hopefully they're not going that way. But this is a spoiler alert for you guys who don't watch the trailers. There is a quick little shot in one of the trailers that I saw of Kieran getting stabbed. Now, of course, I just take that's a dream sequence, it's like, that's how an episode will start. It'd be like, baby, you were having a nightmare. What? Sneaks up behind him. Kieran, turn. What? Kieran, oh my god, turn around. Baby, what? What are you trying to say? Scream. Anyway, so I really don't think they were going to kill him, but then after this episode, I'm kind of thinking they might, because this Eli guy is really kind of taking up the role that he filled, if he filled any role, which was the Emma's boyfriend role, And what's really unfortunate about all that is that he has the ability to go a lot deeper than any other character, being that his dad died, and he has to live with all this. This makes me think maybe they're phasing him out to bring him back in a bigger way. Nobody's really necessarily suspecting Kieran right now, and that's a pretty smart ploy. They're taking him out more and more, and he wasn't around for a lot this episode. I don't know. I'm just saying. And I get it, it's all strange, being that I was such a person last season who was like, it's not Kieran. I remember I threw my pencil down one time and I was like, it is not Kieran. Anyway, this season might be Kieran. Very well might be Kieran. It reminds me of the bowling alley scene, or bowling alley episode from the last season, where everybody was debating, oh, it could have been this person because they disappeared at this point, and putting all these pieces together, and this person was here and there, and then I was like, well, I mean, we're leaving out the idea that Piper was at the beginning of the episode. She's like, oh, my head hurts, I gotta go to the doctor, and then she just never shows up for the rest of the episode. And so it pulls that trick of like, you're trying to figure out where all the pieces go together, but they just took one character and totally removed them from the episode, which is what they did with Kieran this episode. Plus the whole his dad dying thing. I mean, he's got a lot of connections. He's got a lot of, he's still mysterious. We don't know anything about him. I like Kieran. Basically, it's me just saying, like, don't kill him. Make him the killer if you have to. Just don't kill Kieran off. I like him infinitely better than this Eli guy. Now, and thinking about it more, I'm going to go ahead and say it, my killer pick for this episode, and if you guys want to place your killer picks below, why the hell not? I mean, we're on episode 3. Let's go ahead and just start doing that per episode. It'll be fun to look back, picking one killer per episode, and my killer for this episode would be Kieran. Okay, that said, there's this one part in the school hallway part with Eli, Kieran, and Emma that sticks out pretty well to a lot of people online, and it stuck out to me too, that he calls them Fight Club. Now, again, spoiler alert, warning, if you haven't seen Fight Club or read the book, why the hell are you listening to this or watching MTV Scream? Go watch that right now. But the big twist, I'm not even going to, because there are people out there who haven't seen it yet and are just going to keep listening to what I say. The people who have seen it know what I'm talking about. We know how that movie ends. So are they alluding to that's a big twist with somebody, or is that the big twist obviously with Eli? Because, I mean, what else does he mean by calling him Fight Club? I seriously cannot think of another reason he would call him that. If you can think of another reason, let me know. Oh, wait, unless it's very simple that he was like, oh, I would punch my dad in the face. Huh. See, this is what I get for overthinking stuff. You just miss the total obvious thing. But, yeah, so it's either that or it's the whole twist thing. I guess we'll see. Yeah, another thing that was a little bit strange to me about that whole scene was just how fucking mean Kieran was to his cousin. Now, that might be that his cousin's a legitimate, like, crazy weirdo, but why would he just let Emma go off with him if that was the truth? I just think that made me like Kieran more when the attempt was, and this episode's writer, who also wrote an episode of Awkward, seemed to be going for the idea, and this is an idea I support as a writer, that one of the ways you can make people like characters is either through humor, of course, or you just basically have them bullied at pretty much every turn, and then, they're a little bit more sympathetic. It's a quick trick, but I mean, basically it works. And anyway, so it was the idea of like, oh, now we'll like Eli a little bit better because Kieran is so mean to him. But at the same time, it's like, oh, the hell with it, because Eli, you're going to have to work really hard to make up for me having to watch Kieran for 10 episodes, and now I'm invested in him, so I'm sorry. If Kieran doesn't like you, I don't like you, brother. Okay, and this brings us to one of the best parts of this entire episode, is so Audrey and Noah take the GoPro thing that they found, and they go back to Noah's place, and he puts it in his computer. It starts downloading everything, and Audrey stands behind him, and she goes and grabs a bookend, this big, heavy, dragon-looking motherfucker, and she's stalking up behind him as it's starting to load and everything, and we really get the idea that, yeah, Audrey was going to totally smash fucking Noah's head in if he saw that she was the accomplice. However, at the same time, she basically could have just smashed his computer. But I'm pretty sure I'm not alone in thinking that basically the show was saying, yeah, she was willing to kill him. And was he was looking to find out? Maybe. But then, moving from what is probably one of the best scenes of this entire episode with Noah and Audrey, we move right into what is probably one of the worst, which has to do with Daisy and Emma's father drama. Boy, if it wasn't bad enough that we had to suffer through drama with Emma present, now we have to suffer through drama with just the two of them. Boy, this is turning into a really good season, let me tell you. Thankfully, it all doesn't last long, but there is some utter horse shit in this scene. He shows up at the door, and this is funny. This is a little drinking game. I have 2 drinking games associated with this episode. So, if you feel like rewatching the episode, take a shot every single time that Emma's dad shows up and makes the most pouty, sad face I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, seriously, go ahead, do it. He makes that pouty face all the time. Like, rings the doorbell, she looks out the little window, and it's just pouty face. Anyway, so he comes in, they start talking about this, that, the other, and he's like, oh, I've been getting emails from Riley. And she has to break the news to him, and it's all very dramatic, and she's like, Riley was killed by Piper a few months ago, and you're getting messages from a dead girl. Pom, pom, pom. Okay, this is fucking horseshit, and how did this get past anybody? How does this guy, like, how deep, and they say that, he's an alcoholic and more stuff, which we'll get into later, but how the hell does he not know that Riley was basically, other than Nina and Tyler, if Riley was the first big murder on top of a police station, this was a big fucking deal, and he has no idea that she was dead. Like, utterly ludicrous. I don't buy it, show. If you're trying to plant that as some way that he's like sketchy, well, you way overshot your goal, and instead you came off as fucking ignorant. So yeah, that didn't work at all. One little quick killer theory which didn't pass me by. I don't think it's Zoe, because one, I don't care if it's Zoe, because even though she got a little bit more into stuff this episode, and she's obviously going to be Noah's, love interest, I don't want her to be the killer. I don't care about her at all. Plus, how would she hide those huge dreads under the mask? Whatever. These are small things, but this is just stuff that I think about. So right after they're like talking about the whole Riley sending me text messages and messages things, it cuts right to her talking to Brooke, and she's like, I know Noah used to date Riley, but I like him now, blah, blah, blah. And how many people were like, oh my God, one person said Riley, and then another person said Riley. That must mean that she's been cahoots. It could be, but again, let's hope not, because that's just whatever. That's just the editor being like, hey guys, look what I did. And they're like, fucking cool, put that shit in the show. He's like, it's in. Yeah, so don't look too much into that. But then again, I could be totally wrong, and that was the biggest clue in this whole episode. But we'll see. Then immediately right after that, Brooke gets a call, and it's Mr. Branson. And holy shit, I don't know if this just never came up in the last season, or if they hyped it up a lot in this particular episode or whatever. But Branson, the actual actor on the phone, sounds just like the killer. Like, he can pull that shit off really well. And I'm sure maybe they did some voice modification and stuff, but you could still tell it was Branson. But it sounded like a mixture of Branson and the killer. Anyway, that was just something I thought. Studying sound design a bit more, I thought that was pretty damn cool. Plus, I like the fact that Branson came back. I always think Branson's going to be more sketchy than he ever has I mean, he's always played out to be very sketchy, but, like, if he needs to be the killer one time, or they just need to kill him off, because I'm like, Branson for Killer 2015, now I'm going to be Branson for Killer 2016. Not that I do think that Branson's the killer, but, you know, he's a sketchy-ass motherfucker, so I don't put it past him. Okay, then we basically move right into a scene where Brooke runs out into the school hallway. She grabs Audrey and Emma and takes them into the bathroom, and then Audrey and Emma, have this big old fight over Emma's dad. And blah, 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 just drama, who gives a shit, blah, blah, blah. But my favorite thing of this episode is that, not favorite thing of this episode, but my favorite thing about that whole scene, and one of my favorite elements of this this episode, is that Brooke is like 100% certified like adorable, and that's why I hope they don't kill her off, because even though her line delivery is some of the most horrendous I've ever heard, she's fucking adorable, and like some of the faces she made this episode are classic. And if they start moving her into more like a comic relief now that Shake and Jake is gone, I totally buy that, and I'm totally into that. But the look that she gives at the very end of the scene between the two of them, go back and watch it. Classic. Somebody send me a gif of that. Loved it. Okay, so then right after that, we move into the scene where the sheriff and Emma's mom and Emma's dad in it. Thank God the sheriff was in this. Thank God the sheriff was in this particular scene, because otherwise it would have been a total waste. But the sheriff comes off as a fucking asshole, and he looks like he totally just doesn't know what he's doing, because he's like, oh, you're getting texts from, obviously, you know, this dead chick, and she's communicating with the father of the daughter, who was totally... And he's just like, yeah, well, there's not really anything we can do about it. I would say just let it go. And, yeah, it's just... makes him totally come off as inadequate and useless, and now you make me not like this character. And one thing is, he's like, okay, well, I'll handle it, but you have to make sure that you can't tell Emma about it. And the mom's like, which is fucking stupid. But anyway, the mom is like, wait, you're saying I can't tell Emma something? Which I'm like, you trifling bitch. Like, how? Add it to the fucking pile, mom. Like, add it to the pile of you just don't tell Emma. Like, every single episode, this whole show is based, every episode's drama in every single episode thus far is based around the fact that you don't tell Emma shit ever. And you're always, like, every episode has a part where she's just like, oh, I didn't tell you that because I didn't think it was relevant. Then somebody's finally like, don't tell Emma this, and she's like, I don't have secrets from my daughter. Fucking stupid shit. And again, there's nothing against the actress. I really like the actress. Just terrible writing for the mom. I mean, the worst mom ever. Dude, seriously. Another killer theory. I'm not saying that this is my killer theory. I'm just saying that I noticed it, pointed it out, that the sheriff and the Emma's dad keep passing glances to each other, and it's like, oh, I used to live here, and we both had to leave, and blah, blah, blah. But I just thought it was funny that, like, at the very next scene, Emma's mom, she points that out. She's like, I had to sit there and watch you two passing glances like two little boys, blah, blah, blah. And she also specifically says, like, trying to get away with stuff like you did back then, which is going to lead to something like Emma's dad and the sheriff are connected and some stupid thing that they did way back when. But, you know, I highly doubt it was the killing thing. But at the same time, like, we know that eventually, probably season 3, if not later this season, it's going to get back to the whole Brandon James thing, and we're going to get more flashbacks, because we have not gotten nearly enough flashbacks to what happened. So now, not Gustav. Gustav is the son, whatever the sheriff's name is. He's now ties into the backstory, and I'm sure Brooke's dad does too. Brooke's mom too, by the way. Okay, then we go into a scene with Noah and everybody. They go to the movie theaters to watch a movie, and I have to say, this also rubbed me the right way. Other than the Blair Witch Project dig at the beginning, all this stuff rubbed me the right way, that they go to see a print of Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Now, if you haven't seen Killer Clowns from Outer Space, and it's like, oh, that sounds really silly, it totally is, but it's awesome. I highly recommend checking it out. Just as a horror fan, you need to see it. It's one of the better horror comedies. Very silly. Very, very silly. But it does scare some people. If you have a clownophobia, or whatever they call that, maybe you want to stick away from it. But otherwise, this is a very fun movie, and I totally recommend checking that one out. So anyway, Noah shows up to the movie theater hoping Audrey's going to get him in, and then just like last season, where I would always be like, oh, look at creepy Kieran's creeping around, that like aspect of the show has now been taken over by Gustav. Not only is he literally like Kieran, where he's just creeping around and saying creepy shit to people all the time, but he's also the sheriff's son. And we get the same thing, just to backtrack a little bit, with Eli, that now he's going to be like Emma's boyfriend type thing, you know, whatever. So again, brings me back to why I think, as far as this episode says, that Kieran is the killer, because they're highlighting the things that he used to be last season that he's not going to be able to be this season, and he's not going to be able to be in seasons from here on out, because he's probably going to get killed at the end of this season, because that's what happens to the killers. Anyway, just something to keep in mind, think about that. But yeah, so this scene starts Gustav being a creeper, you know, comes up and he starts telling Noah, yo, you better watch out for this, that, the other, who cares, whatever, we all saw the episode. Then the two girls come up, and Brooke and Zoe, and we start getting a little bit of some cuteness, a little bit of a teen romantic comedy stuff, whatever. I'm fine with that. That's fine with me, especially if it involves Brooke. Like, if she's going to be, again, the comic relief, I'm fine with that. One little thing. I don't know if this is just me. Tell me if I'm wrong on this. But she says something about, in AP English, we're reading of Mice and Men. I'm sorry. Again, I might be totally off with this, like I was with the beer in the first episode. But I really don't think of Mice and Men as AP English stuff, you know? I'm pretty sure that you read that in, like, just standard English class in, like, 7th grade, and they're, like, seniors in advanced placement English, and they're reading of Mice and Men. Again, I don't know. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. Seems a little bit rudimentary to me, and maybe I shouldn't be nitpicking that much, but it stuck out to me. Tell me if I'm wrong. So anyway, we go into the theater, and then finally we see it. Mr. Branson returns. Wasn't really much to say about this scene. They're just kicking it around, reintroducing him basically, so he's going to be coming back in more episodes. Although there was one scene, and this might legitimately be the first time that this whole series, and I can't imagine it did it before, made me laugh out loud. Like, I wasn't expecting it at all. They look over and see Mr. Branson, and I believe Gustav is like, who's that? And Zoe's like, oh, he used to be the English teacher. And, what is it he says? He used to be our English teacher. And, like, Noah looks over at him and, like, basically Brooke, and he's like, yeah, he used to do a lot of things. I don't know why. You know, that totally got me. Like, I thought that was funny as hell, especially just how, like, dryly you put that out there, and it didn't seem like Brooke, like, picked up on it at all. I love that. This, was it John Karna, I believe is how you say his name? Guy who plays Noah. I mean, this guy is great. Like, I really fucking love him. He's by far the best actor on this series, and he's just killing it week after week, making this show worth watching. One other cool thing about this scene, and again, it has to do with Noah, but Branson finally comes back over, and he's like, and Noah's like, oh, wow, let's try and not make this awkward. So, Branson, have there been any other young girls gone missing? And he's like, I never liked you, Foster. Again, just a moment I liked from the first season, because we remember that scene where Noah and Emma went and hid in the music room, and he came in and he was like, your proclivity for monologues, I don't know, whatever. Just nice little moment. Okay, so then Emma gets a call from her dad, or a voicemail, or no, the killer basically comes into the grindhouse where she works and leaves her a fucking note that says, hey, come to this place all alone, you know, creepy. And Emma's just like, oh, okay, no problem, I'll just go to the... So she goes back to the motel, and, wait, hold on, yes, hold on, I'm missing something. Okay, no, I wasn't. Anyway, so she gets this note, and she's like, okay, I gotta go meet my dad at the place. Anyway, so after that happens, then we go back to the Eddie Kruger guy. So Eddie Kruger, he... in the hotel that he works at, like, gets alcohol delivered to him. I don't know, whatever. Again, this is just a small thing. But anyway, so he goes up and he's like, hey, Mr. blah, 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 and just walks into the motherfucker's room, and keeps walking into his room. These are small details, but again, these are little things that bother me. And sees the bathroom door open, and sees fucking, like, hears water running, and sees that, like, steam, and he keeps walking in. Like, what was his plan? Like, to push the door open, see Emma's dad butt naked in the shower, and be like, oh, I'm sorry, I had no idea that you would, you know, be naked here in the shower. Anyway, so he walks in, and the whole place is, like, covered in plastic, And he's like, hey, where's the corkscrew? I'm like, motherfucker, you dead. Oh, you're so dead. But anyway, so he walks in and he's like, oh, all this plastic. And it's like classic horror movie stuff. But what are you going to do? We all knew this guy was going to end up biting it. So anyway, what was really cool is, I think it was a reference to the original Halloween, is the killer stands up with the blanket over him, falls over, grabs the wine bottle, smashes it over the guy's head, and then in a little bit that I really liked, he goes over and turns on the radio, and it starts playing like this 50s doo-wops song, which, by the way, please, if anybody knows or can find out what that song is, please send it to me. I looked for like an hour today after I watched the episode and before I started recording this, trying to figure out what the song is, could not find any information on it. So if you could figure out what that song is, and please comment me or send it to me or tweet it to me at FrightFlix, I would very much appreciate it. I need to add that to my iTunes right this minute. Anyway, so I have to say, and this probably shouldn't surprise anybody, that this is probably my favorite scene of the whole, I don't want to say the whole series. The dock scene was really cool, and pretty much everything inside the bowling alley was really cool, and I like the opening Nina kill. But this was really fun. Like, this is the kind of shit that I really like. Not only does it pop up, Halloween kind of reference, comes up, smashes him, grabs the corkscrew, and just starts go. Like, I mean, you guys all saw the episode, but if for some reason you didn't see the episode, this killer goes fucking wild on this kid, like just over and over and over and over and over. Like, this is pretty hardcore stuff, and then like grabs him and like sticks it into his neck, and we get like close-ups and just blood going everywhere, and drags him off into the bathroom. Yeah, all set to 50s doo-wop. Now, I don't know how many of you guys out there are David Lynch fans. I would highly suggest checking out Twin Peaks or Blue Velvet, possibly. But more specifically, check out a movie called Mulholland Drive. Anyway, 50s doo-wop has ever been etched in my head since watching those movies as something that goes perfectly with horror. So I absolutely love this scene. This is the kind of shit that I totally dig. So good for you, episode. This episode is going to be hard to beat for, hopefully they do, but it's going to be hard to beat for a favorite episode this season just for this scene being in there. So that's something. So I'm going to try and wrap all this up pretty quick because it's going all pretty long. So the killer calls Audrey from the bathroom. This makes me think that there's multiples, but at the same time, whatever, maybe it's just silly that Emma's standing out there in the other room, just didn't hear the killer on the phone being like, hey Audrey, I'm creepy and shit. So anyway, I think that there's two, but if there isn't two, you got to think about it like this. That, okay, so we know the killer's in the bathroom. We know Emma's in there, so it's not Emma. We know that Audrey is getting the phone call, so it's not Audrey, although some people have the Fight Club thing that the phone calls are fake, whatever. Anyway, you can see how that connects. We know it wasn't her dad because he's over getting into a fight, and we know it's not Noah because Noah was just on the phone with Audrey. So if you are in the camp where it's Noah, he definitely needs an accomplice at this point. Well, we all kind of figured that would happen. Hashtag cahoots. So anyway, the killer calls from inside the hotel. Audrey has to drive over to the place really quickly, and there's really cool like shots in that scene. These are small things that, again, I like to point out the details. I'm a details guy. And Jamie Travis shoots stuff really well, and I am going to, wherever I can, try and steal his shots of the car traveling, because it's a very good shot up high with the wide angle lens following right after. I dig that shot a lot. So anyway, Audrey calls 911, and Emma doesn't pick up her phone. Emma almost walks into the bathroom where the killer is waiting, and then a random couple breaks everything up, and Emma gets away safe. Now, the thing that I thought was interesting about this was that the couple that saves her, basically, is, and we're about to get into the heavy theme of this episode, which was, it was a couple fighting, and they're fighting pretty intensely, and let alone the idea that the guy was wearing a wife beater. Like, a fucking, no one should ever wear wife beaters ever again unless you're literally like Beach Wife. So anyway, that's what saves her, and then she goes right downstairs, and her father admits that, and this was pretty like is pretty dark for MTV, and it's like, dude, not only was I not digging on Emma's dad, but I totally am not digging on him now, and he needs to die because he's a fucking son of a bitch. Like, not only is he like, oh, well, your mom said something one time and I hit her, he goes so far as to say I fractured her jaw. And we just saw him whoop the shit out of some dude, a bouncer, outside of a bar. So we know that this guy is a brawler. And then, right after seeing how fierce he can be, he talks about how he fractured fucking Daisy's jaw. Like, I'm gonna kill this motherfucker myself. I'm like, ooh, show. Like, he's gone. He's gone. Somebody needs to whoop his ass and kill his ass and stick a fucking corkscrew and then cut him in half with a trawler, and then use one of those, like, weird, like, father death sigh things to, like, cut him upside down. Like, get this guy out of the show. I fucking hate him. And he has no business in this show. Let's support Daisy on this one. Over, said, done. So then Audrey gets in her car, and it's like, look under your seat. And I'm like, don't look under your fucking seat, Audrey. There's obviously the corkscrew that was used to kill the guy. She reaches under the seat and pulls out the corkscrew that was used to kill Eddie. And she's all surprised, and now she's got literally the blood of another person on her hands. Bah, bah, bah. Cut to black, and so by theory, the next episode will start right there in the car, and then we'll go from there. And hopefully the first thing that happens, like I said, is that Kevin Duvall. Now, at the end of the podcast, I remember what his fucking name is. And Kevin Duvall will be the first person who just gets, like, fucking killed. And they'll fracture his jaw and kick the shit out of him, and we'll never have to see or hear from him ever again. This is what I hope happens. Okay, but I think that does it for this week's episode of Killer Theories. This was Killer Theories for Season 2, Episode 3, Vacancy, and I will see you guys next week for Killer Theories on Season 2, Episode 4, and that is called Happy Birthday to Me. Remember, during the week to go ahead and watch the movie Happy Birthday to Me. It's a cool 80s slasher whodunit, and remember to stop before the third act and send me a message and be like, this is who I think the killer of that movie is. Anyway, it'll be a little bit of fun. Let me see if you guess the killer right on that one. Happy Birthday to Me. It's a good one. Check it out. And remember to support our first feature film from Frightflix, Echo River. The link to our Indiegogo is posted in the description. Just send us like $1 or something, just as a, hey, I like these podcasts. Here's, a little bit of support. Every little bit helps. We would appreciate it. And I will see you next week here on Frightflix and Killer Theories. Later on, guys.